Okay, people. So our next joint is something that looks at Irish folklore. Yes, it is called Unwelcome, and it is from director Jon Wright, who co-wrote the film with Mark Stay. It is produced by Piers Tempest and Peter Touche. It's executive produced by Matt Williams, Alison Thompson, Andrea Scarso, Doris Villanchria, Janny Moddar, Jamie Jessup, Mark Gouda, Sebastian Barker, and Joe Bamford. It is co-produced by Lauren Cox. Christian Henson handles the music. Hamish Doyne Ditmas, cinematography. Zofia Talas edits the piece. Kelly Valentine Hendry was on casting. Production design is John Beard. Art direction is Sandra Phillips. Kathy Cosgrove is set decoration. Costume design is Annie Hardinge. Hair and makeup, we have Sophia Slotover, Christina Mallet, Chris Lines, Shawnee Harrison, Bay Bambi Brett, and Paula Ann Booker. So our cast, people. Well, Maya is played by Hannah John Harmon. Her husband Jamie is played by Douglas Booth. We've got Daddy, aka Mr. Whelan, played by Colin Meaney. His son Eon is played by Christian Narin. Right, his other son Killian is played by Chris Worley, and gosh, his daughter, Maeve. I think no, his daughter isn't Maeve. Well, that's irritating. His daughter Aisling is played by Jamie Lee O'Donnell. We have got Maeve owns the pub. She's the neighbor. She's played by Nim Kuzak. There's Father Breeden, played by Finbar Lynch. Rory, played by Lalore Roddy. Right, we've got yeah, I think like we got the red caps. Okay, so Mr. Smith is voiced by Paul Warren. The mother is played by Ania Marson. And the chief is voiced by Rick Walden. So yes, that is it. Now, the gist of the story is this: a young couple escapes their urban nightmare to the tranquility of rural Ireland, only to hear stories of mysterious beings who live in the gnarled ancient wood at the foot of their new garden. As warned by their new neighbor, Maeve, in Irish law, the Redcaps will come when called to help souls in dire need of rescue. But it's crucial to remember that there is always a dear price to pay for their aid. Yes. Now, there's a bit of a statement, right? It reads like this: Unwelcome undoubtedly falls into the ever popular genre of a creature feature horror. Maya and Jamie move to rural Ireland thinking they're starting a new life of tranquility and safety, only to discover there are malevolent creatures living at the bottom of their garden. Director Jon Wright and writer Mark Stay were inspired by films such as Gremlins and Straw Dogs and the terrifying concept of our home invasion, during which someone or something is in your home and there's nothing you can do about it. Jon Wright describes Unwelcome's take on the genre as a horror movie as well as a creature feature. It's undoubtedly got some humor in it and it has a lightness of touch. It never goes to a morbid or depressing place. As a movie, it's always entertaining, but it can also be extremely violent. However, there's a more there's more to a good creature feature than weird and creepy gremlins wreaking untold havoc. As we see in Unwelcome, there's a human story at its core, a young couple escaping urban life, starting a family, and building a home and future together. As Mark Stay explains, the best creature feature movies always have a human, heartfelt element to them and an emotional family story at their center. If you took the horror element out, you would still have a compelling and watchable story that audiences can engage with. Um, yeah, the creatures within a creature feature are meant to show the audience a warped reflection of themselves. Um, when we see gremlins, werewolves, or aliens, or in our case, a red cap, they're always representing a dark, shadowy side of ourselves as humans. For Unwelcome, the red caps represent the potential for violence within all of us humans. If we're pushed to our limits, how violent can or will we become? So yes, that's the thing. Now, this starts off, right? We have a little girl running through the woods, trying to hide. I'm gonna say the hiding place, a little whack, right? Then we see a shadow fall over her and a scream. Ooh. So now we're with this couple, Jamie and Maya. Jamie goes out to the corner shop after they get some news, right? So he's gone out, he's bought some champagne to celebrate. Now there's a group of guys, right, hanging out. They harass him going into the shop. So coming out, you know they're going to do that. And, you know, Jamie does the thing that you just, it's not always wise. Well, it's never wise to do, really. And, you know, what we see next, it's definitely a surprise, right? Because I think the expectation is for something else. So, yeah, the next lot of events are like, yo, fuck. So this all happens. And you're thinking, damn, right? Damn. A little weird, right? It's a little weird, but it's definitely gets a point across, right? So then we have them driving in a car. It's a little bit later. They're driving in a car, and we hear them, you know, going because one of Jamie's relatives, his grandmother, something like that, she's dead, and she's left them this house, right? So you know, we have them go. They're in Ireland. New start. What do you think this couple probably deserve? You know, after everything that has gone down, and Maya is yeah, she definitely needs it for sure. Right now, the idea, you know, when you think you're in the rate caps and all of this, I like it. I like the idea. It's pretty, you're like, ooh, this could lead to so much. Lead to so much, people. I think, though, a thing that you know, I just thought was a little. And I mean, we get this fun scene in the pub, right? When they first walk into this pub. Because listen, when you go into some rural pubs, right? You're the outsider. It can be icy as a motherfucker. So that was kind like this scene's kind of amusing, right? But we do get the whole Irish English thing. And I do find it kind of tiring. You know what I mean? Because we like anything with Irish, Scottish, Welsh, it's always, oh, fuck the British. Fuck the, you know what I mean? We don't like English people. Go back to your fucking own. And it's always this, right? And listen, I imagine, right? Back in the day, yeah, there was definitely that. A lot more of that. You know, that was a lot of the IRA stuff back in the 80s, you know, 70s, 80s. Man, it was going on for a long time, right? I don't think it's necessarily the case now. You know what I mean? Look, you've got a portion of the population that kind of wants, you know, independence. But I think people, we hate them, you know? So when this element gets played out for films and TV, you're just like, I mean, there's other routes into the story, you know? Like, why are we doing this? It just feels a little lazy, you know? So we have that element of it. Another thing that I just, again, a little bit of a bugbear for me, but we've got Ian Whelan, right? Played by Christian Narin. You know, the guy that played Hodor in Game of Thrones. Now, that character, you can think, you know, he's kind of on the spectrum, right? Now, as Game of Thrones, you understand what that's all about, right? But yeah, that's essentially his character in Game of Thrones. And again, that's his character in this. And it's just like, really, you know, it's just, again, it kind of feels lazy, right? There's other ways, right? We can get to where we want to get to with a story without having to be like, okay, so this big guy, let's have him slow. Let's have him, you know, not very quick, let's just say, right? We'll have him on the spectrum. And then he can do this stuff, and that will take us here, and blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, yo, really? What are we doing? The other two Wheeling siblings, you know, they're all fucking British, blah, 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 right? You've got Paul Williams, Colin Meaney's character. And again, right, because we know that Maya and Jamie need their roof fixed. But you kind of think, right, if you're looking for help, right, you'd ask for advice. So they could ask the neighbor. They've met their neighbor, Maeve. They could ask her and be like, oh, is there, you know, builders you would recommend? Because you know it's definitely not the Whelans. So it's very odd, and especially when you consider what they've been through, that they would fuck with the Whelans, right? That's very weird. And then when the Whelans turn up again, it's just like, firstly, how? Right? How? Because you know that Maya and Jamie ain't leaving their doors open. You know that, right? So it doesn't really make any sense. And, you know, you get because they want to make this part comedy, so that's meant to be this light element, but it's just irritating. Well, I found it irritating anyway. You know what I mean? The the whole red cap thing, right? Leaving the offering and all of that. And it's just the whole garden, right? It's at the bottom of the garden. Now, what happened to Maya and Jamie wasn't in the garden. So going like, oh, we don't want the neighbor in the garden was again a little bit weird because it seemed like you would never see the neighbor doing this thing. So, is that really a deal? Now, if it was in the house, you would get it, but it's not. It's the garden. So it just seemed a weird thing. And when the setup is this needs to be done, obviously, it's gonna get missed, right? It's going to get missed. So then it creates a situation. You know this. Right, it's all very like the first trip be into the woods felt very unnecessary. And especially when you consider Maya's condition, just a lot of the things done, you just think, I don't know if anyone in that condition would do those things. Right? So a lot of it felt very, huh? Why though? Right? It's like in a horror movie when someone is by the exit, they can escape, but instead they go, "Oh, escape is up the stairs." Right? And it's just like, wait, you could have gone out. You could have run to your neighbors, got in the car, but you ran up the step. Like, why? Right? And so a lot of the actions were why? Right? They just didn't make any sense. I think right in the statement, right? They're like both John and yeah, Mark are like, oh, they wanted to keep it light-hearted and not get too dark but I'm just like, the entry to the film is a dark thing, right? So I think addressing that thing in an intelligent way isn't going to bring anyone down, right? It's just something that makes sense. It's not depressing, it's logical. And we don't ever really get that, right? We don't get them addressing this thing in a way you would have to, right? You would have to. And so that's very odd. Like, oh, Jamie's got a boxing bag, right? Technique is shit. Terrible punches homie's throwing. But that's not enough. That's not doing anything. So, like, yeah, it felt like this was a really interesting concept. But I just, man, I gotta say, I wasn't a fan of the execution, you know? Just it didn't really as I thought Gremlins, that I love Gremlins, man. Gremlins 2 as well. But you just felt that was a more logical, it was a Christmas present, a little kid, right? Trusting a little kid not to feed it after you just think, "Right, kids can get wrecked. Of course they're gonna fuck up." Right, so I think all the things that happened, you're like, "Yes, that's gonna happen," right? Ob Obviously, it's gonna go to that place. So I think with that, it's a more logical film that you can go, "Yes, I definitely believe that would go like that." You know what I mean? And yeah, I think that for me was like the fall downs for Unwelcome. Right? And a lot of the Red Cup stuff didn't necessarily make sense. I liked it at the start when we never really saw the red cap, right? There was a shadow, a quick movement. That made it very sinister. When you saw them, I thought, oh, that's kind of taken me out of it a little, unfortunately. But yeah, as it look, people, horrors aren't really my thing. So if I really dig that's something. That's telling you something. You know what I mean? Like, I think with this one, if you ooh, I guess, it's those old school films, like Leprechaun, right? Stuff like that. If that's your jam, you know, if that's your jam, then I think this will play for you. But you gotta like that kind of film, right? So think that old school kind of horror-y, jokey thing. And if you can go to yourself, yeah, that's my kind of horror, then people go and check Unwelcome. It is dropping um very soon. Very soon. Right? Yeah, you will get it on the gosh, I think it's the 26th, yeah. Yes, I believe it would be Monday the 26th. So be able to get it on all your favorite VODs, you know? Yeah, as well as Shudder. So people, Unwelcome.